Good morning. You all look so rested. Did that 1 hour help that much? That's so good. Welcome one and all to Coral Gables Congregational Church. We are part of the United Church of Christ, and we extend to you this welcome, that no matter who you are or where you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. And so indeed, we extend a very cordial welcome to all of our visitors and guests who are with us for the first time today, as well as to those who are worshiping with us online from actually around the world. We are so grateful for your presence. As I look out here, I do have to say a very special welcome to the Burdicks. We have missed you so much. And it's so lovely to see you back right where you belong in your pews. So welcome. It's lovely to have you. I'm going to ask that you please sign in this space. If you will sign in using the red pads that are found on the inside of the pew. Those of you who are worshiping with us at home, if you will sign in using your computer, that would be lovely so that we might know from where you are worshiping. Following our service, I hope that all of you, family and friends alike, will join us in the fellowship hall for some time of informal conversation and some refreshments. 15 of our high school students are on a weekend retreat, but I know that they would want me to remind you to buy your Thanksgiving pie. So after worship, please go into the fellowship hall, purchase your Thanksgiving pie or two, and know that the proceeds will go to their mission trip this summer. Also, after worship at 12:15, all are invited to a special luncheon hosted by our Legacy Committee to help you care for your family and your friends by planning and learning how to plan for your own memorial or funeral service. I will tell you that such pre-planning really enables you to give expression to your faith and a witness to your life, as well as to help out your loved ones at such a difficult time. So please come and join Dr. Morgan and I as we talk about what a service might look like and the things that you should think about. Tomorrow evening, Mystic Monday continues with a special book study on being mortal, medicine, and what matters in the end, which will be led by Christy Hayes. That will be at 7 o'clock p.m. in Havoc Horse Lounge. Also tomorrow evening, I encourage you to attend the PAC annual meeting. People acting together for community. We start out with dinner at my home, and then we will go to New Bethel Church for the annual meeting. More information on that is on page 11 of your bulletin. Wednesday evening continues a series that is being offered here on autism awareness. Join us from 6:15 to 7 o'clock in Havoc Horse as we hear about early identification signs of autism. I really hope that you will come and learn more about this important subject. But beforehand, don't forget there's dinner, and so come join us at Church Night In. Rest of the announcements are on your bulletin. Please take a look, and as I always say, join us throughout the week for any events, programs, and opportunities. So friends, on this All Saints Sunday, we gather now reminded of that great cloud of witnesses that surrounds us and that sustains us and gives us good guidance for the future. Let us be together in a time of worship. I invite you to stand as you are able for our call to worship. We come today to give thanks to God for the saints, for the saints who taught us to share even when we didn't feel like it. For the saints who expected more of us than we did of ourselves. For the saints who pushed us to live out our ideals. For the saints who praise God still on another shore. our differences, knowing that God made us just as we are. Let us welcome the stranger and the familiar by saying, peace be with you.
And also with you.
This morning, we celebrate, we give thanks for, and we dedicate the gift of hand chimes given in loving memory of Vi Shillington by her daughter, Patty. How grateful we are, Patty, for this most generous and beautiful memorial. And we indeed receive it with deep appreciation and joy. To tell you just a bit more about it is Ron Morgan, our Director of Music Ministry.
Our handbells have been part of our music ministry program since 1969 when they were manufactured. That is also coincidentally the year I graduated from high school, but we won't speculate on which one of us is holding up better. So and all of you have been such great fans of the bell choir, but we've never had the hand chimes that go with them. And so, thanks to Patty's gift in memory of her mom, this now becomes possible, and it makes a lot more things musically possible for us, because here is the sound of the bells, and here's the sound of the chimes. So you can hear it's a much more mellow and kind of subdued sound, and it's often used in combination with the bells, but in this next piece, we're going to play it entirely on the hand chimes in memory of Patty's mom, Vi Shillington. The plaques on the cases are inscribed, "Make a Joyful Noise," because her mom loved the Psalms and loved the music of the church. And we're also playing it in appreciation for all of you who have been so supportive of our handbell program over the years.
So I invite you down to that stage. So I invite you to join with me in these words of thanksgiving and dedication. Oh, sing to the Lord a new song, for God has done marvelous things. Let the heavens rejoice, let the earth be glad. Let the sea resound and all that is in it. Let the fields be jubilant. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the forest and the mountains sing for joy. Make music to the Lord with the harp, with the flute and the sound of singing, with trumpets and bells and the blast of the ram's horn. To you, O God, we offer our thanks and praise. We know that your creative power is the source of every good gift. Today, we take joy in the special gift of these hand chimes given in loving memory of Vi Shillington. We remember her faithfulness, her delight in life, her love of family, and her appreciation of the handbell choir. We too are grateful for the gift of music that stirs our hearts, inspires our souls,
and strengthens our spirits. We celebrate the gift of these hand chimes that open us to new and beautiful ways in which your people offer praise and worship.
In memory of Vi, may these new hand chimes inspire the music of our souls in times of joy and sorrow, contentment and lament, prayer and worship. By your grace, may their melodies shape our faith for years to come, and in ways that forever give glory to you, O God, and to the blessed memory of Vi Shillington. Amen.
Good morning. I'm Arden Shank. I've been a member of this church for 15 years. This year I'm also a member of the Executive Council. I have great respect for this church, and I am a donor because of our strong commitment to economic and social justice. Jesus gave a very clear direction in Matthew 25 to care for the poor and the marginalized. This church carries out that command in many ways through word and action and advocacy. I represent this church on the board of the Community Reinvestment Alliance of South Florida, where I am the founder and the board chair. The mission of the organization is to ensure fair and equal access to credit and capital and financial services in our South Florida communities. We are part of a national effort to protect one of the key banking laws regarding fair and equal access. I'm inviting you to join that campaign today. You can let federal banking regulators know how you feel about a proposal that has come out from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. The OCC is one of several regulators that oversees and evaluates banks such as ones we see in our community: Wells Fargo, Citibank, Chase, Bank of America, Florida Community Bank, Bank United, City National, and others. The OCC is floating a proposal that would threaten South Florida and the entire country. The proposal would change the requirements of the Community Reinvestment Act. CRA has leveraged significant amounts of loans and investments for low and moderate income people and communities across the country, and especially here in South Florida. The proposed changes would threaten programs implemented by banks in South Florida to help people of modest means to get a piece of the American dream. And that includes special mortgage programs for first-time home buyers and low-income home buyers, loans to minority businesses, financial counseling, and for offices of nonprofits that work in poor neighborhoods. Before CRA was established, few banks in our area did these things. Indeed, many of them openly discriminated against people of color and low-income neighborhoods. And they did that by not making home loans in certain neighborhoods and to people of color. As a response to the bank's illegal and discriminatory redlining, the Community Reinvestment Act was passed in 1977. The requirements of CRA have resulted in billions of dollars of loans and investments made in many communities, like here in South Florida, that had been previously ignored or actively redlined by banks. This is not the time to weaken CRA. It's established that low and moderate income neighborhoods in South Florida could lose up to $1.4 billion in home purchase and small business loans over the next 5 years if this takes place. Unless banks know that there would be penalties for discrimination against people of color, women, people with disabilities, and other protected classes, illegal discrimination will not only continue but increase under OCC's possible changes. So, we can join that national effort for fair housing, fair lending, and economic justice by stopping by the table in the fellowship hall after worship to learn how to submit a statement. So let's submit as many comments as possible to the OCC to keep the Community Reinvestment Act strong and relevant. Will the ushers please come forward to collect the morning offering?
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to live in the country of Moab, he and his wife and 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the country of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. When they had lived there about 10 years, both sons also died, so that Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she started to return with her daughters-in-law from the country of Moab, for she had heard that the Lord had considered the people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she had been living, she and her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on their way to go back to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back each of you to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with me and the dead. The Lord grant that you may find security, each of you, in the house of your husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud. They said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of the Lord has turned against me." Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. So she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. There will I be buried." When Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. Friends, listen. God is still speaking.
Please join me in prayer. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. The book of Ruth begins in tragedy. Naomi and her family have escaped to Moab because there is great famine in their home in Judah. While in Moab, Naomi's husband dies, making her dependent on her 2 sons. Then Naomi's sons, both who have married Moabite women, suddenly die as well, leaving 3 women with 3 dead husbands and no means of support. In the culture of that day, a woman without a husband and without sons was destined to a life of poverty. Everything that Naomi had was swept out from underneath her as the fragile walls of her world crumbled. There was no silver lining, no pot at the end of this rainbow, no glass half full analogy that seemed appropriate. Naomi had lost everything, her entire family, her security, her name, her future. She was totally alone, and so she did the only thing she knew to do, pack up and move back to Israel, a land where the places wouldn't be filled with the memories of her past, a land where her reputation as an unfortunate widow might not follow her, a land where life might be easier. Yet between the lines and in a powerfully moving way, the narrator of the book of Ruth tells a story of great beauty and inspiration. The characters that really matter are ironically those who are most on the margins, the least powerful, those with the fewest resources except for their wits and their determination and their faithfulness to each other. This simple yet beautiful story could take us in several directions today. It could cause us to a deeper reflection on the experience of refugees and immigrants and on the pressing need for survival that impels them to leave home. It's a story that we could use to remind us that in every age and in every culture, women suffer from institutions and traditions that render them voiceless and powerless. And yet still they survive and thrive and look after one another and their young. We could also talk about the beautiful images and example of faithfulness found in this story. That there on a dusty road on the way to Bethlehem, a young pagan woman, utterly powerless and low in social standing, makes promises that most relationships find hard to fulfill. And in doing so, is still remembered today for her fierce loyalty and tenderness of heart. And that these promises were made by one woman to another woman is rarely acknowledged. It makes one think twice about the beauty of families of all kinds and the promises that hold them together no matter what. But on this All Saints Sunday, I choose to use this text as a way to speak about, of all things, saints. Now, while the definition of who or what a saint is varies widely among world religions, I think we can say with some confidence that saints, regardless of the religious tradition by which they are identified, have acted in service towards something larger than themselves, or that they found it within themselves to shine the light of the holy in the darkest places of our world or in others' lives. Certainly we see it in this story of Naomi, who was too old and who had lost everything, and Ruth, who threw away everything to journey with her. While we know so very little about Ruth, we do catch a glimpse of an ordinary life that shares extraordinary love. On their own, these two women seem to be living a small and insignificant story, but it has become one of the greatest love stories of all time. Now, contrary to our cultural assumption, saints are not flawless individuals. Even the saints immortalized in stone and stained glass, legend and lore were imperfect. The esteemed psychologist Abraham Maslow reminds us there are no perfect human beings. Persons can be found who are good, very good indeed, in fact, even great. There does, in fact, exist creators and seers and sages, saints and shakers and movers, even if they are uncommon and do not come by the dozen. And yet, these very same people can at times be boring and irritating, petulant, selfish, angry, or depressed. To avoid disillusionment with human nature, we must first give up our illusions about it, he says. Or, to translate him, saints are ordinary people who happen to be extraordinarily human. They are people whose very way of being in the world touches and changes the world. And they are all around us, giving us refuge from life's troubles with a kind word or smile. They are strangers who show up at candlelight vigils to stand with the suffering, or the person who takes time to write a letter to Congress. They are people who suffer and celebrate with us as we co-author the story of the world with our lives. They are people, just ordinary people, who choose a different path, people whose minor choices beautify the world moment by moment, life by life. Writer Robert Benson reminds us all of the places of our lives are sanctuaries. Some of them just happen to have steeples. And all of the people in our lives are saints. It's just that some of them have day jobs, and most will never have a feast day named after them. Frederick Buechner writes, "A saint is a life giver, a human being with the same sort of hang-ups and abysses as the rest of us, but helps us come alive in a new way. So it seems only right that we should indeed set aside time to honor the ordinary saints of our lives, those people who by their words and deeds have shaped the direction of our lives and have inspired us to plumb the depths of our humanity, that we indeed might live more fully, more kindly, this precious life, this one precious, special life that each of us have been given. And so today we remember the saints who have lived among us and over this past year have left our physical sight, but not our memory or our love. Our list includes mothers and fathers, grandparents, sisters and brothers, wives, husbands, partners, uncles and aunts, neighbors, best friends, colleagues. They are as young as 5 and as old as 96. Some were unexpected losses and others long goodbyes. And some are precious parishioners of this church, each saints in their own way, for they taught us something about life. St. Julie, a young mother and wife whose amazing courage in the midst of her diagnosis of cancer inspired those around her to love a little wider and to live a little deeper. St. Peter, who got a whole congregation to talk about death and in the process to celebrate life. He reminded us to eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow. Well, you know. But to not forget the most substantial things of life: faith, family, generosity, gratitude. St. Edith, who truly made lemonade out of lemons, literally and figuratively, and that would always, always see the glass half full, whose gracious demeanor and elegant spirit called us to our better selves as individuals and as a church family. St. Vi, such impish joy and celebration in her heart, and like nothing more than cheering on her favorite sports teams or her daughter or granddaughter. And I think of each of the services that I was privileged to officiate over this past year, many of whom I did not even know personally. But as I heard their stories, I knew that a little sainthood was in order. So on this All Saints Sunday, I hope that we will pause and reflect, to become a little more aware and appreciative of those ordinary saints who have come bearing the light of holy into your life, and that in so reflecting, you will grow in awareness of opportunities and courage to do the same for others. Our world needs ordinary saints who are extraordinarily human. Or as the old sermon illustration tells us about the little girl whose pastor asked her, "What's a saint?" The little girl thought about the stained glass window in her church and said, "A saint is somebody whom the light shines through." May it be so. Amen.
passed. And in these 12 months that have come and gone, we have indeed lost loved ones and friends, as well as those unknown and unnamed individuals who have died through tragic events which have broken our hearts. This morning, our memory table is in the center of this congregation as a reminder of those who have gone on before us, but that still are in the midst of us. On this table are also placed some stones, a Jewish tradition of placing stones on grave sites in memory of those who lost their lives at the Tree of Life Synagogue last week. And so, as we light these candles in holy memory, we stand defiant, living into the hope which is ours through our faith, which reminds us that nothing, not even death itself, can ever separate us from the love of God or from the love that we shared together. Let us now remember these saints who have walked with us on this earth. Marge Terhark, Dr. Michael Canning, Bruce Nelson Thomason, Kathleen Bootsy Lunsford, Clara Halstead, Vi Shillington, Elena Laura Machado, Barbara Jean Kindred, Tensi Jimenez and Tom Scarlow, Gladys Badal, Peter Knezovich, Maria Ramdan and Catalina Colon, Julie Kozner, Edith Matthews,
William Franklin Murphy. Imogene Kramer, Bill Cassidy, Herb Smith, Tammy Backus. Clarabelle Perez. Cherry Kreck Sr. and Cherry Kreck Fulcher. Alexis Eugenio Alcantara. Judy Casey. Jacob Cole. Jason Lauer. May they rest in peace and in our memory.
in the rising of the sun and in its going down. We remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the blueness of the sky and the warmth of summer, we remember them. In the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too will live, for they are now part of us as we remember them.
Remember
Go in peace to be the saints of God. Do to others as you would have them do to you. And may the Holy One give you a spirit of wisdom, that you might come to know the hope to which you have been called as the saints of God. Amen.